Anyway, so Dan Lohrmann's going to be addressing what's been going on with we think it's Russian based, and we don't know if the Russian government's involved, but we think a Russian based group is involved in this hack. But Dan, why don't you kind of fill in some of the details here for folks?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be on the show again, Matt. Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear, but Matt couldn't be on.
Well,
but,
I know we're twins. We look so much alike. So.
I meant Mike. Yeah, so it's great to be on. And yeah, the news is all over the front pages across the country, really across the world, that the Colonial Pipeline hacked a ransomware that hit last Friday. And just some of the basic facts about it. Basically, the pipeline carries 45% of East Coast fuel, and experts are calling it the most significant assault on U.S. infrastructure in history. So it's a huge headline story. It's lots and lots of coverage across, New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today. Everyone's talking about it. But really, the ransomware itself was believed to be the product of a company called DarkSide, and DarkSide runs their enterprise. Basically, it's believed to be run out of Russia. Again, there's different opinions about some of this, but so all of this is really moving fast. I want to kind of put a little small disclaimer in the beginning of this, and some things could change. But basically, this gang is known for creating ransomware and then actually selling it or having different partners use it almost like as a business enterprise, and then they use it to attack different targets. Very, very dangerous ransomware. Basically, what DarkSide does is they then take a percentage of the earnings from the successful ransomware attacks. And there's some websites that literally came out and talk about what they do and how they do it. How do they actually basically get access. Usually they get credentials in the dark web, and they use those credentials to get access into companies that they find as good targets. Especially this company, DarkSide, claims that, like I said, they only go after English-speaking for-profit companies. They avoid Soviet bloc nations, basically the fear is that this is going to last. It's already lasted 4 days. They're talking now. There was just a statement that literally came out about an hour ago saying that they're hoping, the Colonial Pipeline is hoping, they can be back in operation by the end of the week. But meanwhile, everyone's getting involved. It's getting a lot of national press, and the impact is in the oil markets.
Yeah, it's sort of ransomware as a service, isn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what they do, and they really have a number of different ways that they do that. It's kind of interesting. Like you said, one of the stories. There's lots of. You literally just Google this, the Colonial Pipeline. You're going to see this all over the news. So many different stories running right now. But CNBC ran a story this morning saying that Cyber Reason had gotten a note from the company on the dark web, which actually said that there was a little bit of a semi-apology, which is kind of crazy, from the ransomware, from the company, from DarkSide, claiming that they don't intend to be political, that they're just in this for the money.
Just your basic commercial criminals, right?
They're just in it for the money, and they don't go after hospitals, they don't go after nonprofits, they only go after companies that can pay the ransom, and they're purely in it for the money. And they, like I said, some people think they're lying. It's just kind of a cover up. Who knows whether that's true or not? But clearly the impact has been huge, and all throughout, companies around the world, in Michigan, certainly here, but all over the world are like, well, what do we know about this company, about DarkSide? What can we do? How can we prepare? What are the things we should be looking for? And there's lots of sessions around, these are their tactics. These are the ways and things that you can, indicators that you can watch out for from DarkSide to see if, in fact, perhaps they're going after you.
Yeah, old Vlad the Impaler, he's probably involved in this somehow. Vladimir Putin, we all know and love, yes. So anyway, what I was saying to you when we first got started, this will provoke the U.S. into doing something. And then what I'm fearful of is it'll just get spiraling out of control, going back and forth, attacking each other, essentially cyber war, right?
Well, it's sadly escalating. Ransomware, the wider topic. This is obviously the big headlines today, and it will be for the next few days, and certainly this week. But also over the weekend, there were more ransomware attacks against some major cities. The amount, the volume of ransomware attacks is just escalating, and it really is. I know we've been talking about this on your show for years, and it's like, can it actually get worse? Well, it is. It's growing in scope. It's growing in impact. The ransoms are getting, just as Bitcoin is, through the roof. The ransoms being demanded by the threat actors are going up, up, up. We don't really know in this case what the amount is that has been reported. I've been looking for that. What was the ransom that these bad actors were claiming, to be asking for? I'm not sure of that number. I haven't seen it. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
But what is clear is that they've made it very clear, and the way DarkSide does business is that they kind of do a double action. They not only encrypt your data, but they also steal the data, and then they basically display on the dark web, or they make available to the victims. This is the data that we're going to release to the public if you don't pay the ransom by the deadline. So they use that then as a threat. And that more and more is happening around. Whereas in the early days of ransomware, it was just about encrypting the data. Now there's also talk about releasing the data. And then there's also fears that even if you do pay the ransom, of course, they could still sell the data on the dark web, sell it to their partners, quote unquote, and do harm that way.
Or not even de-encrypt it. Just say, neener, 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 we got your money, too tough, So, but I know this is, there also has been circulating from the Biden administration a new directive on how to preventing this sort of thing from happening going forward. It's been floating around out there for a month or so, and this may drive it forward a lot faster, right?
Exactly. Well, there have been a number of commissions. The specific commission that I want to mention today, it was actually called Ransomware Task Force Combating Ransomware Comprehensive Framework for Action. You can certainly Google it and get it out there. I'll get Mike's got the link. We can post this out on MITech News so people can get that. It's from the Institute for Security and Technology. Now, it actually does have representatives from the Biden administration on it, from the CISA, Department of Homeland Security, the Criminal Justice, FBI is involved, some others, and they've got 100 recommendations. I just thought we'd talk about what they call the priority recommendations, the top 5 on the show today. Some of these I know we discussed via email. You me, and Richard Steenan we're talking about. Makes sense. Some of these will be very hard to get buy-in from private sector companies. I'll just read a couple of these. Like I said, these are the top 5. But number 1 was a coordinated international diplomatic and law enforcement effort must be proactive and prioritize ransomware through a comprehensive resource strategy, including using a carrot and stick approach to direct nation states away from providing safe havens to ransomware criminals. It's a mouthful there, Mike, but it's exactly what you were just talking about is, we got to go after the nation states that are harboring the criminals. And so that was the first recommendation on the list.
Okay, what are a couple of the other ones?
Yeah, so number 2, United States should lead by example by executing a sustained, aggressive, whole-of-government, intelligence-driven anti-ransomware campaign coordinated by the White House. In the U.S., this must include the establishment of 3 things. 1, an interagency working group led by the National Security Council in coordination with the nascent National Cyber Director. Number 2, an internal U.S. government joint ransomware task force, and 3, a collaborative private industry-led informal ransomware threat-focused hub. So sounds like a lot of committees there. Number 3, governments should establish cyber response and recovery funds to support ransomware response and other cybersecurity activities. Mandate that organizations report ransom payments and require organizations to consider alternatives before making the payments. And I think that was the one that Richard was really, kind of saying that's going to be rough because it's shaming organizations. People don't necessarily want to report it. There's a lot of, one of the big questions, and there's always reports about out there. There's one report I just saw recently had Michigan near the top of the list of ransomware victims. But again, it all goes back to the challenge of, how much of this is really reported, and do people really report, every time it happens?
Yeah. Well, I used to have a cybersecurity newsletter, but it was so hard because when the people got hit, they didn't want to admit it. And when people found the tools to prevent it, they didn't want to share it. So it made it really tough to report the news. So I kind of finally gave up on that.
Interesting. Well, let me give you the last two real quick, if you don't mind, Mike. But do you have a question, follow-up you wanted to ask?
Well, I'm just going to say, go ahead. Give us the last two, then I'll follow up. So
great. So the last 2 points were an internationally coordinated effort should develop a clear, accessible, and broadly adopted framework to help organizations prepare for and respond to ransomware attacks. In some under-resourced and more critical sectors, incentives such as a relief and more funding or regulation may be required to drive adoption. And then number 5, the cryptocurrency sector that enables ransomware crime should be more closely regulated. Governments should require cryptocurrency exchanges, crypto kiosks, and over-the-counter OTC trading desks to comply with existing laws, including Know Your Customer, KYC, anti-money laundering, AML, and combating financing of terrorists and terrorism laws. So those are the kind of the top 5, but there's 100 recommendations in the report. We'll see how many of those get implemented, but it is a pretty robust report.
You're an old NSA guy, so I know you know a lot of stuff that you can't talk about. But I mean, if Russia wants to get into a tit for tat kind of thing, the U.S. could really do some serious damage, couldn't they?
Certainly could. And, I'm hoping it doesn't escalate that way. I'm hoping this, honestly, stays, if you will. My guess, my best guess would be, Mike, and I don't know this, currently, so I can share my thoughts because I don't currently have a security clearance at the moment. But I will say that my view is that there's probably a lot of discussions already happening right now between the U.S. and the Russian governments. They're trying to keep it out of because Russia publicly, I'm sure if they haven't already done it, they will say, this was not us. Dark side is not, we don't know who these people are. We're against ransomware, yada, 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 publicly. But then privately, I'm sure there's some very hard discussions that are happening, hoping it doesn't become a U.S. versus Russia kind of head-to-head escalation, because that tit for tat is going to get really nasty. But, it remains to be seen if that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I imagine you're at Security Mentor, and probably a lot of your clients are coming to you asking that very same question. How do I keep these bad guys out? Now, we're running short on time, so short answer in about a minute. Obviously, talking to you is one thing, but what else can they do?
Yeah, certainly. I think we've shared this on other shows, but having really good backups is the first thing. Making sure you have backups that are tested, that you have them offline, so that you can restore operations should this kind of thing happen. So, also really outstanding detection capability, threat intelligence to look for those indicators of compromise. I think, certainly for small businesses, it means, having the right tools in place to protect your security around, basically everything from passwords or really two-factor authentication, hopefully, and not allowing people just to use passwords to get into your systems, which is the way we believe this happened this time. But making sure you have the right identity management in place and you're protecting your critical servers.
And real quick, if people want to find out more about Security Mentor, I know there's a website because I've seen it, but why don't you share that with us?
Sure, securitymentor.com. You can visit our website. Also, you can see me on Twitter at GovCSO, and happy to link with you on LinkedIn as well. Dan Lohrmann, Lohrmann. Great to talk to you again.
Traditional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.